This is it, version 4.2 of Star Wars Squadrons has been released. And whilst the patch notes for this version is quite small, it is having a huge impact on mid-tier and high-tier gameplay. So big in fact, I invited a special guest, ScalpWakka, to join me in discussing these new changes on version 4.2. ScalpWakka is a pro Star Wars Squadrons player and is one of the best interceptor players in the world. So without further ado, let's dive right into these patch notes. Hello guys, I'm here joined with ScalpWakka, probably one of the best interceptor players that I know in Star Wars Squadrons, definitely in the top 10 at least, if not the top 5. But today we're going to be talking about the new update, the version 4.2 update that has quite a few big impacts despite it being such a small patch note. So I wanted to dive right in on these patch notes. Probably the biggest thing out of all of them is the drifting nerf, if you will, or the hitbox changes when drifting. So if you want to give a bit more of an accurate description of what those changes are, Scalp, for the viewers.
So used to, you could drift and be literally invulnerable. Shots would not hit you while you were drifting. So now, when you're drifting, shots are actually landing. So it makes drift spamming not necessarily the right decision for every single engagement. You have to plan those engagements out now because you're very, very fragile.
And what do you personally think of those changes?
It's very, very good for the game. It's the most fun I've had playing the game in a while, right? Because the way that you have to approach your fights, you can't just trust yourself to drift and be invulnerable while you're drifting. You have to use the terrain to your advantage. You have to make sure that when you're going in, it's, one guy isolated. You can't take engagements where there's two people there because you're just not gonna make it back out. You know what I mean? Now drifting, you can do it to stay squirrely, but you can't rely on it to cause shots to miss consistently, right?
Yeah.
So you have to fight in very burst fashion, right? Like get a few shots on a guy, get moving, go back around, get a few shots on him again. You can't just drift around each other in circles anymore.
I already felt the changes in my most recent play, which was tonight. I felt like I was actually landing shots, even as a TIE bomber, as an AI farmer. These ships actually were more vulnerable when drifting into a new angle. When before I felt like it was like I was just missing shots because I was a bad player, and now I'm actually feeling like these shots are landing, especially when they're drifting. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that drifting all the time might not be the best maneuver now because it temporarily stunts the angle of where you're trying to fly to?
So in the months leading up to this patch, we have developed very bad habits in terms of how we're fighting each other, right? Like dead drifting, you were invulnerable, so you could get going in a straight line, turn around and start shooting people and not take any damage during a dead drift unless they're quite literally in a straight line in the plane of movement, like parallel to you. So with the way that you're engaging each other now, sorry, I got scrambled. With the way that you're engaging each other now, it's very much like on an equal playing field. And lasers are meaningful, right? Like used to lasers weren't meaningful. They wouldn't land. So you saw a lot of missile spam with Mark. It's still going to be very strong, but now I've been having fun rolling around, with mask and resupply on my TIE interceptor and just gunning people down with my lasers because they are struggling to avoid lasers, as they probably should.
It's almost a reminiscence of the early times of Star Wars Squadrons back in October, where sensor jammer, reflect hull, and just being a good shot was all you kind of needed to do to play well at the game. And then that kind of fell off the meta in turn for missiles to counteract people's drifting abilities. But now it looks like it's shifted back to, as you were saying, going into sensor jammer, reflect hull, and trying to be that sneaky interceptor.
Right. And I don't know, it's been, only a few hours. We haven't gotten a lot of hands-on time, but me and my squad, our brains are already churning. Okay, how can we maximize, uptime while also not getting shot at? Minimizing the enemy team's uptime. And like target priority is going to be changing, right? So like used to, we would diving backline because the interceptors couldn't hit us, so we could just get backline and get damage on their bombers and their support ships. But now those interceptors are going to be able to fight us immediately, right? So we're trying to figure out what the best way to prioritize targets is, but I mean, all that'll come with practice in the upcoming weeks.
It makes AI of farmers a bit more safer as well, because they're being in the back lines farming the AI. That now that interceptors are so much easier to hit, they're not going to be able to breeze through the front line straight into an AI farmer and start firing upon them, as you were saying. So it will be interesting to see how you'll figure out how to get into those back lines for those crucial support players and AI farmers.
Right. And if you can, it's going to be really like more devastating than usual for the defending team, right? Like, because that's the way we're thinking about it currently. Like, you've got to fly as a team, like even more so than before. Like, it's very crucial that if you get a tail, you pull out and get evasive and have somebody clear you off, because you're just not going to survive to get back to your frigates. Like, you got to have somebody there to pull you. But if you can get like a one interceptor advantage, a one dogfighter advantage, getting those backline players is going to be very, very critical. And a lot of offenses are going to be stymied just because they can't break through.
Definitely. Do you feel like this has changed any loadouts for your interceptor? Do you think this will change out any loadouts for TIE Defender as well?
Oh man, earlier today, and this was the single most gratifying feeling I've ever had in Squadrons. Like first game on, I was like, oh, I'm going up against multiple defenders. Let me pull out the ion lasers, and they couldn't do anything but run away. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know loadout wise particularly what changes on the defender end, but teams will have to get away from running 3 or 4 of them. They're going to have to go like 1 defender, 1 interceptor, right?
Yeah,
it puts the interceptors back in a very usable situation, which is amazing because that's my favorite ship in the game. But in terms of like an A-wing loadout, I don't see much changing outside of potentially like ion lasers being effective, or maybe some funny sensor jammer builds just to help keep you alive in dogfights.
Definitely. And just for the viewers at home watching, what was happening is that the TIE Defender is able to drift a lot more frequently with its fast regenerative engine. So its primary job was to be super maneuverable, and because of the drifting making them invulnerable temporarily, it made them very hard to attack. And that's why a lot of you guys that are playing in the pro scene, Scalp, was starting to run ion lasers just to counter such a heavy hitting ship, essentially, if I'm right.
Right. It got so bad, like before patch, you could run 5 defenders, and because of the way that the recharge rates work on ships, and the defender particularly, you could quite literally always have unlimited boost and always be drifting around and be invulnerable the entire game. So the only way to get around that was to hopefully land quick locks when they're marked, hopefully, catch them in a moment where they've maybe gotten lazy and jump them and insta-kill them, or run ion turret Y-wings. Like, that was the only thing you could do. It was terrible. But now, like, things are mortal. Defenders can still drift 100% of the time if they've got perfect power management, but you can land shots while they're drifting, because now, drifting isn't always the right answer.
Definitely. One other thing in the change notes I think we might bring up now is the other thing that made TIE Defenders super, super strong, which was they've nerfed the TIE Defenders concussion missile cooldown from 2.3 seconds to 6 seconds. So I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know that the TIE Defender could dumbfire concussion missiles every 2.3 seconds. That's nuts.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, actually. My objective players were telling me that today after I read it in the patch notes. I was like, wait, this is 2.3 seconds cooldown? They were like, yeah, it was crazy. Like, subsystems just didn't stand a chance. I was like, okay, well, yeah, that needed a nerf.
Definitely.
So that 2.3 seconds, that's crazy, man. My mind was blown when I heard that the first time.
Definitely. I was because I was only assuming that people were running TIE Defenders so frequently in the Calrissian Cup esports tournament because of the drifting and the really strong shields, but the dumbfiring of concussion missiles that frequently makes it a very powerful offensive ship rather than what I believe should be a defensive ship for dogfighting only.
They are arguably better at objective play than they are at dogfighting. a lot of people use them in more of an interceptor role, even though they're a fighter. But we have had massive success using them on objectives.
Interesting. Yeah, this seems to be a very high level, high skill ceiling ship, which is definitely dominating the pro scene.
Yeah, it's a ship that really punishes you if you don't fully understand the power management mechanics and the timings and everything. Like taking advantage of your boost decay timer is really, really useful, because ships have, like, when you swap power to another system and you drift, there's a time where boost is not necessarily decaying. I think it's like a half second, quarter second. So in that half second after you start your drift, you can pop power to another system, charge it for a half second, and then pop it back into engines before it starts decaying, and essentially just never run out of boost. Because you can also recharge it while drifting as well. So like while you're drifting, it's recharging, or you're charging other systems, and you've got unlimited energy at that point.
Definitely. Another thing that I'm doing a lot more, especially with AI farming, is when I've shifted all of the available energy into my engines or my lasers, mostly my engines, and I've got nothing left in my lasers, I tend to reset my power levels as Empire. This can't work for New Republic, but so constantly power shunting to a reset to put more power back into my lasers extremely quickly, because I'm generating boost faster when I don't have anything into my engines, if that makes sense.
Really? That's interesting. The way I fly my interceptor, and I haven't messed around a whole lot with that, but I try to stay aware of when I've got full boost and when I don't need it. Because the second I hit full boost, I'm wasting power, because I've got my power and engines just about all the time. So I shunt out to lasers and continue that engine recharge. So I'm never at like a 0 net power. I'm always making sure I'm gaining power, which is probably kind of the same circumstance, the same situation there.
Yeah, they nerfed it actually I think in like version 3.0. But so it's not as good as it once was. You were generating energy that you shouldn't have from resetting it. So now it's a lot more stable. But when your engines are completely gone, when you shifted them all away and via power shunting, I find that they regenerate quite fast, just so like you can actually start moving again. So that's why I keep resetting again and again and again, just because I keep my lasers kind of like a reserve for extra boost I need when when the time is dire as Empire. So yeah, that's one thing I'll probably have to go into a bit more detail in another video.
Understanding, yeah, that would be a good video topic actually. Understanding those shunt mechanics is really, really, really important for Empire. It is the thing that puts them in competition with New Republic ships, because they've got shields and are regenerating all the time. Most Empire ships don't, so they really rely on the ability to shunt and stay very aggressive and evasive.
Yeah, absolutely hell for dogfighting. That's why I just stick to objective play now.
Get the PvP out of my PvE game.
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly that. Well, I think those are the two biggest things for this version 4.0 patch. We've got some other things that if any of you guys are interested in: fix an issue where music would overlap for spectators, fix an issue where the flagship's health and shields would not display correctly on the tactical map, and then fix an issue where text chat would stop functioning when using controller. I actually had that issue quite a lot, but yeah, so that's pretty much all of the version 4.0 patch notes just dived into by me and ScalpWakka. Is there any socials you want to push before the end of this video?
Just my Twitch, twitch.tv/ScalpWakka. I'm live there, 5 days a week for 8 hours a day just about. And then I've started uploading videos on YouTube, but I don't think I'm comfortable enough to plug that yet.
Sure, no worries. Well, Scout, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you again for that question and answer session for a separate video that we mentioned. And of course, guys, if you love everything Star Wars, or if you enjoy Star Wars Squadrons and even Jedi Fallen Order, definitely hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date on everything Star Wars gaming. But other than that, I have been Charlie, you've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.